Welcome to the Crafty View. I'm Diane Williams. I'm host for the show. And each week we interview a different craftsperson, and the show airs at 6 p.m. on Fridays on the Craftsman Guild of Mississippi's Facebook page. So I hope that you will tune in every week. And I think it gets more and more exciting each time. Today, we're meeting with a young man named David Johnson, and I'd like to welcome him to the show. Hello, David.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Oh, look, we're in your studio.
Yes, we are. My cozy little studio in Memphis, Tennessee.
Oh, is that where you're located?
Yes, ma'am.
Must be fun being in Tennessee, being a potter, and there's a lot of activity up there.
Yeah, there is a lot of activity up here. A lot of my support comes from Mississippi. Actually, I have a lot of support in Mississippi, but I have customers all over the states now with selling through the website. But the majority of my customers are in the Mid-South. I go all the way down to the coast to do craft shows, and some in Alabama, some in Tennessee, a lot in Mississippi, one in St. Louis. So I get around, but mostly in the Mid-South.
So do we call you a potter?
Yes, sure. Call me a potter, an artist, a craft artist, craftsman. I kind of use the terms interchangeably. I used to not like to call myself an artist per se, just because it kind of felt maybe pretentious. But I do try to elevate what I do and take the craft into a fine craft level, but also try to maintain, the basic root of the simplicity of it, and the fact that, I can provide something and provide art for a large number of people, whether you have, $20 or $500 to spend. So that's one of the things that's always kind of excited me about it, is that it's kind of an art for everybody. And I'm happy to provide that for the world. Yeah.
That is great. And I would like to know right off the bat, tell me something unique about your work.
Well, I would say most people would probably point out the colors that I use. I'll show you an example here. Some of the bright colors and glaze patterns you don't see very often in ceramics, because colors tend to burn away and certain firings and things. So my color and glaze palette is probably the most unique thing. My forms are quite traditional, I would say, and rather kind of plain in form, but that's done intentionally so that the glaze will have something to kind of showcase on. So I would say it's my glaze, glazes and color and pattern in the glaze.
I noticed that it is unique. On the handle of that particular cup, there's an emblem. Let's take a look at that.
It's just a little thumb rest. And, I didn't invent the thumb rest, definitely, but that came about after introducing these accent colors and trying to figure out a place to put the accent color. Where do I put it? Because at first, this pattern here, this mug is an evolution of about 10 years or so of making and using these glazes. So the first mugs that came about, I needed to find a place. I needed to find a place to put the accent color. So I thought, well, maybe if there's an embellishment on the handle, that'll give me one little spot where I can put some color, some contrasting color. And so I did that, and it soon became something that a lot of my customers really enjoy. It's got a tactile quality. There's a bit of a texture there, and it's a place when you're holding your mug, you can kind of caress and feel, and people really do kind of respond to it, which I think is by accident. It's kind of funny that it's become something that people really enjoy when it was really just a place for me to add some color to. But those kind of things happen after making lots of pieces, and you kind of just follow the piece into new territory and have discussions with customers about things. So my work is, I follow my heart, and then I take it to market and I talk to customers, and I take their response and it turns it into something that's new, that is, you know, what the people want with a combination of what I want. So, you know, over time, it's given me some unique pieces.
You know, I've seen people hold cups and they really have a relationship with that cup, you know, something
Yeah,
about the grooves in the cup. And I think that when someone's drinking something hot from a cup like that, it's really enjoyable. It's really a moment of reflection. So it's really something more than just a simple cup to drink out of. It's like, this is mine and I'm feeling
yeah,
one with this cup. Hmm.
yeah. You know, the beauty of the mug is that, you know, most of us have our daily routine, and whether we drink coffee or tea or even just water, you know, we get in a habit of doing certain things every day. And the beauty of making a drinking vessel is that you can become a part of someone's daily routine, and that becomes special because it's truly a part of their life. They don't just visually see it; they physically use it. And when you do that, you know, you infiltrate into a space that is sacred, you know, and it's, you know, I get to participate via my work and my customers' lives. And, you know, they tell me quite often that, you know, oh, I wash my cup every day just so I can use it as my favorite cup. And if they happen to break one, they come and get another one. And they, you know, they tell me all these stories. So these mugs, they have lives, you know, and they interact with other lives. And, you know, it's really neat. I mean, I really do like the mug for that aspect. You know, it's a very simple idea. It's a simple product. But if you can convince somebody and make an item that is, you know, worthy enough to be used every day, I would say that's a successful piece. You know, that's what I'm trying to do. You know, I'm trying to make items that people want to use every day.
Yes. How did you get into doing pottery?
I went to art school as a young person, and I thought maybe I would be a graphic designer when I started. You know, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I was artistically talented, and I wanted to do that. So I ended up going to art college at Memphis College of Art, and my first semester I took graphic design courses and all the basic courses that you needed to take, and I absolutely hated graphic design. It was not enjoyable. Second semester I took my first pottery class, and it was special. Like, I knew that I really liked it from the very first class, and I had an idea that I might, but you know, I didn't really follow my instinct at the beginning. And so after that first class, I just kind of dived in, and, you know, it became, you know, one of the things that I was really focused on. I was also focused on printmaking. So, you know, I was a printmaker and a potter, or learning those things. And, you know, over time, you know, the printmaking kind of went away, and the pottery and the ceramic arts stuck around. You know, I've got a real connection to the material and to the medium itself. You know, I used to make sculptures and all kinds of different things, but over the years, the work has guided me and kept me in a functional realm. And, you know, being able to pay my way and to make a living doing so, you know, that kind of helps guide you in the direction you need to go.
Right.
I still experiment with different techniques and new ideas, but the majority of my work is functional, handmade, wheel thrown pottery.
Have you ever just explored anything crazy? Have you ever made anything just unusual or
Oh
crazy?
yeah, I do that kind of stuff all the time. You know, I can, you know, I've all kinds of lamps and weird lighting fixtures, and you know, I'm still trying to. One thought I've always had in my head is, like, you know, you get bored making the same thing over and over. So when I think about my artwork in someone's house, you know, the cup resides in the hand, you know, or in the cabinet. You know, I've got jars that reside on the countertop, you know. So I try to find more spaces in the house where I could have artwork. You know, one space that I haven't quite worked out is the wall, you know. So it's usually the wall is usually space for paintings and things like that. So I'm currently still developing some new ideas for that space, you know. So I kind of think about the space in the home. Where could a pot fit, or maybe not a pot, but a sculpture, you know? And I try to develop things that fit in my ways of making to occupy that space. And if it's successful and people buy it, then I'll do it again. And if it's not, I'll just kind of, you know, take the information that I learned and you know, use it some other time down the road.
You know, you made me think about an artist in Alabama. She used to make these clay squares and they hung on the wall, and then she would embellish them with maybe put a piece of metal, a decorative piece of metal in the middle somewhere, but it would be these squares
Yeah.
about 2 inches thick. And you know, so keep working on that, because I'd love to have something to hang on the wall.
Yeah, no, I'm currently working on some things. I've got some things that are going into the kiln real soon that I think I finally worked out some of the mechanical problems I was having with things warping and stuff. So, you know, you have to experiment to approach, you know, and solve new problems, because anytime you start something new, you get thrown a curveball and there's, you know, a problem shows up. And the hard part truly is, you know, solving the problem and moving through that problem. You know, so that's probably the hardest part of making artwork. You know, if you've never seen it before, it's because it's difficult to do at some point down the road, and you have to figure out and be creative enough to solve the problem, because anything can be done if you can dream it up and then solve it. Dreaming it up is the easy part. You know, solving it and figuring it out in the studio is the difficult part. And maybe that's what separates, you know, the truly great artists from just, you know, day-to-day average, you know, good artists, but you know, the greats. You know, I mean, I don't pretend to be one of those yet, but you know, maybe 50 years from now, maybe someone will look back on some of my work and say it was great. But I'm not too concerned with that now, you know.
Yeah, so you're sitting there, you're at the wheel. They call that the wheel, is that correct? And
Potter's wheel, yes.
and for those that don't know, what is going to make that wheel go around?
Well, this wheel is an electric wheel, so electricity makes this one go around.
Okay.
But it's powered by a foot pedal. So my left foot is underneath. My left foot is a pedal that almost looks like. I can just kind of show you. It's almost like a car pedal, and you push. The further you push on it, the faster the wheel will go. And you want to turn it off, you kick it back the other direction. So this wheel is an electric wheel, and I control it with my foot. I learned on a kick wheel, which is powered by kicking a big stone that's connected to the wheel head. But currently in my studio, I just have a couple electric wheels that I utilize. But there's treadle wheels and kick wheels and electric wheels, and they're all really good tools. And they essentially do the same thing, but they're just powered in different ways.
Okay, make sure you claim your electricity on your taxes.
I sure do. You have to.
Love to see you at work. So we're in your studio.
Yeah.
Show us what you can do.
Yeah. How about all right, I'll show you guys a finished piece first. This is a bowl, serving bowl. So this starts like this, 3 pounds of clay. It's been kind of prepared already, kind of wedged, and the air bubbles have been removed. And so I'll just kind of run through it and kind of talk as I go. So the first stages are centering. We'll get some wheel buzz with the wheel here. So I'm just kind of centering the clay, making it nice and even. So I'm controlling the speed with my foot.
And you're adding water?
Just a little bit, you know. The water keeps the clay from sticking to your hands, and it provides lubrication, so it's moving through my hands instead of sticking to my hands. Without the water, it would just stick to your hands and it would come off of the wheel. So it's the water, it helps to slide through your hands and through your fingers. So I've created a nice even lump, and so from here I can find my center and make my inside hole. And then so now is kind of the exciting part. I'll start to open it up. So what's happening here is a lot of different steps that over the years I've managed to, with a lot of practice and patience, to combine a lot of these steps. So anyone that's thrown a pot before knows there's a lot of things that go into it, but with the more and more work that you do, you kind of gradually, everything becomes one, all the steps become one, and it becomes a more fluid motion. So it looks like these things are happening really fast, but you haven't seen all the thousands and thousands of pieces that I've made before this piece that didn't look like this.
People really need to know what goes into creating a vessel. And thank you for explaining that it takes time and experience to get to be able to do it and make it look as smooth as what you're doing.
Yeah, it takes a willingness to fail. You know, you have to be willing to make something that's ugly, and you have to be willing to fail. You know, I think that attitude, it's definitely a learned attitude. It's not something that a lot of professions really, I would say, exploit. You know, failure is often viewed as a bad thing, but in our line of work, failure, or what some might perceive as failure, can lead to fresh ideas or new ideas if you're willing to look at the outcome and stand back and say, well, what about it looks good, or what about it worked? You know, I mean, you can see the things that failed, that didn't work, but can you find the things that did work and then take those into the next piece? So this happened really fast, right? It seemingly I'm doing it as I talk, and we have a bowl. But that's 20 years. I've been making pots since 2000. 2000 was my first class. And so what year is it now? 2021. So 21 years of making pots. So that's why it looks easy. So anyone that's watching that is new and wants to make pots, you know, try not to get frustrated. You know, you're gonna make some flops, you're gonna make some clunkers. But if you truly want to learn, you just have to keep making pots and going through the motions and learning and failing and trying again.
So your tools that you're using now, is that a sponge or a cloth?
Yeah, got a sponge.
Hard.
This just helps keep the piece lubricated as my hands are flowing against it, and also removes some standing water and slurry. Slurry is a mix of fine clay particles and water. And if you leave that stuff on the pot will absorb it, and it'll crack or crumble and create problems down the road. So the sponge helps me, remove a lot of that, and also helps the piece slide through my fingers a little bit better. Some potters don't use sponges except to remove water on the inside. I use them a lot on my outside hand.
Okay.
So to finish this one off, I'm going to use another tool. It's a little wire tool. It's kind of hard to see on camera.
Oh yeah, I have one of those.
Yeah, and I'm going to remove a little bit of clay at the bottom here, and then I'm going to just do a little rim treatment for you guys. It's kind of fun to watch. And so I don't really measure things out. I just kind of visually look and kind of get in the rhythm. And I call this my sawtooth pattern because it kind of looks like saw. So sometimes the spacing gets a little off, but I let it roll, you know. It has a life of its own. So that's that. And so last thing I'll do is I'll take a wire tool. It's just a wire connected with two handles, and I'll cut this from the bat so that as it's drying later, I'll be able to pick it up and free it from the bat. And so after that, I'll just go ahead and take this little insert out. And then from here, it sits and it stiffens up, usually overnight, depending on how humid it is, or how dry the studio is. And then I'll flip it over and I'll trim the bottom, and then it will dry and gets fired and glazed and fired again. And that's it.
So the square on the bottom, is that going to be part of the vessel? Is that?
No, so the square is called a bat. And this is just so that I can pick the piece up, because right now it's very, very soft. So if I were to touch it with my hands, it will distort and it will change the shape that I just gave to it. So I could explore and press into it and make different shapes, but my work is very kind of basic in form. So this is pretty much finished. So from here, it'll stiffen up and then get flipped over. And the bottom, there's a lot of excess clay on the bottom, and that will be trimmed when it's firm enough to handle, which usually takes overnight, about 12 hours or so.
And you can use that wire to garrote somebody.
Yeah. All right. So, and then from there, then I just put another bat on the wheel and keep going. And, you try to make as many as you can and try to get in a rhythm. And that's what it's like.
Have you ever taught classes?
I used to teach when I lived in New York City for some time. And when I lived there, the only way for me to have access to a studio was to teach at a local community studio where they, in exchange for, they paid you a small amount and then they gave you studio space. So I worked at a studio called Super Mud Pottery on the upper West Side. And it was a great place. It's still there today. Little local independent shop that, I had the same students retake the classes. It's like, once you were a student there, you just kept taking classes, and it was just this awesome little community of people. And so I used to teach there, and I've taught at a couple other studios, one in Brooklyn or two in Brooklyn, just briefly, but I've been concentrating for the last 12 years or 11 years, just solely on making and selling and doing the craft show circuit and being a part of the Craftsmen's Guild of Mississippi, so.
What does that mean to you to be a member of the Craftsmen's Guild? Do you find?
Well, I've been a member on and off. I first applied, I think it was in 2005, and it was the first time I applied, and I amazingly got in, and I was very, very excited and just humbled, to be included among this group of, really talented artists, because I was only a couple years out of undergrad, and I was still learning a lot of things, so I was really excited to be a part of that. And then life took me on a journey away from Mississippi for a while, and then when I came back in 2010, I reapplied and got back in, and I've been a part of it ever since then. And it's just a great, it's another community that's really nice to be a part of, because you get exposed to other ceramic artists, and we get to come together once a year to do Chimneyville, which has historically been a great show for me. So, I'm making new customers through the guild, and I make friends and through the guild, other artists. And, it really has opened up doors, throughout my career, and it looks good on the resume too. But outside of that, it's a good community to be a part of. And, because sometimes when you're a studio artist, you're in your little studio by yourself for a long time, for the majority of your career. And so when you get to go out and be a part of, a community, it really makes you feel like it's worth it, and it makes you feel good,
What's your signature on your work? How would I identify that this is David Johnson's work?
Kind of read that there, maybe reversed in the camera, but I stamp my work now with a stamp that I had made for me, and it very clearly states my name and Memphis, Tennessee, and it's got a replica of my signature. I started doing that about 5 years ago because I realized that the work itself could be a calling card or a business card, and I used to hand sign, and it was very, an artistic signature can be hard to read. And I realized that I'm losing business by doing that. So I clearly printed out my name so people can, they can Google me now and find my website. And, even if they just see this mug sitting at a friend's house, they can flip it over and say, oh, David Johnson Ceramics, and then Google, and then there you go, new customer. So I realized long ago that I was not necessarily presenting my name as well as the work. People would see the work and they'd find me at a show years later and say, oh my gosh, I've been looking for you. I didn't know what your name was. And it's like, well, it's on the bottom of the mug. They're like, well, I couldn't read it, So I realized I needed to fix that, and finally got around to doing that.
That is wonderful. One of the things I had encouraged the Guild, I believe I'm the one that encouraged them to put a paragraph, like a little placard near the artist's work so we can know about the artist. I think it's
Yeah.
important to know and recognize the people that do this work that spent so many years. You were going to make something else for us to show us some other works?
Yeah, I can. I've got some more clay here, kind of sitting around. I can show you a couple more examples. This is a little bud vase. These have been quite popular. Going back to your thought about having a little placard next to the artist. It's good so that the consumer or the customer can they can get a better understanding of where it comes from. Because if you just see this, you might think, wow, that's pretty, but you're not necessarily thinking about how it's made or where it's made or where it comes from, or the fact that it's just one person in a small studio that can only make a couple thousand pieces a year. It's not mass produced in the tens of thousands. So they might look at it and say, wow, it's beautiful, but why does it cost more than the one that I saw at Walmart or whatever? And without the understanding of where it comes from and the information, it's hard to understand it. So when you share that information and it's more open to the consumer, it might make them more enticed to support you and to buy your work, because when the customer knows that every time they buy one of these, it literally puts food on the table. It's that changes things, and it's made just by these two hands in a tiny shop in the backyard of my house. It's not a multi-million-dollar corporate operation. It's just one person working heart and soul, blood, sweat, and tears, into their work. And when you share that information, I think it helps people understand and want to become a part of your life that way.
I think so. I remember people used to collect plates from all over the place, and people ask, well, was this manufactured in China or Argentina? We ought to want to know about the artists as well. So that is great. So you're
Yeah.
going to do something
Yeah.
else?
How about this is a 2-pound piece of clay, and I'm currently building inventory for a couple shows and the website, things like that. So one thing that I need to have that I've sold out of is I call it a mini vase or a mini vase. Vase versus vase, that is the question. But so this will be a small vase. So I make vases in a few different sizes. It's nice because they can be $24 or they can be $120. They can be $500. Just depends on how big the piece is and how long it takes to make. But what's nice about that too is if you have someone that comes into your booth that's a 20-year-old fresh out of college, and you don't have a lot of money when you're that age, but you can afford $20, you can afford 24, and it looks just like the big one, but it doesn't cost the same.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to have a variety of sides and dollar value so that I can get more people to become customers. So I center the clay just as always, so always start that way. Now I'm working on the inside, kind of refining the bottom and making sure it's thick or thin enough, because once you start pulling the piece upward, it's very hard to get back inside to manipulate the bottom. So I have to get this right now, or it becomes very difficult to do so later.
I wondered about that, how you had a sense for how thick the what do we call that? How thick it is on the bottom, or
Yeah,
it won't go too far and burst through.
Over the years, it's a vision. I can visually kind of gauge it, but that's taken a lot of practice. I used to use a needle tool to kind of gauge the thickness, but I can sometimes I still have to do that, but after thousands and thousands of repetitions, you get to skip some of those steps. But any beginner will tell you, the needle tool is how you check the thickness on the bottom. But when you get to a point where you feel comfortable that you've put it at that spot, you kind of can move on. So I'm just gradually bringing the piece up. and I've noticed an air bubble on the inside. So I'm just going to go ahead and pop that so that I can get rid of that. Before the piece comes to the wheel, it gets wedged and de-aired, but sometimes you still have air bubbles, and you need to get rid of those because it makes it problematic. So right now I'm just kind of bringing the clay upward so that I can start shaping it. Before I start giving it a lot of its shape, I want to make sure a lot of the clay is kind of standing up, because once I start to open it up, it's very hard to make it, to bring the clay vertical. So I bring the clay vertical. So it's pretty even from the bottom to the top now. So now I'm going to go ahead and start give it a good pass with the shape. And so my shapes are pretty organic. Like I don't really have a particular shape that I stick to for every size. So this size, this size vase, I kind of just I freestyle every one. So I might make two that are very similar and then make something that's very different the next time. So I just kind of go with it. This one I'm going to do a high shoulder, so a smaller foot, and then I'll start to bring it out. Collar in. All right, that's looking pretty good to me. So sponge on a stick. I can use this to remove the standing water on the inside. So I want to do that before I start to close it in. So from here, I can still adjust the shape a little bit. I'm going to bring in the opening a little bit, and then going to use a rib. This is just a thin metal rib. Kind of refine the shape here. So that removes some standing water on the outside, some slurry. It stiffens it up. It kind of helps me refine the shape a little bit. So this one turned out with a wide opening. Yeah, usually I try to make the opening a little bit more narrow, but like I said before, I kind of just have a rough general idea, just kind of flow with what's happening. I've learned over the years that I lose a lot of joy in making if I try to become a machine and just try to make the same exact thing over and over. I don't really enjoy that as much as just going through the motions and making. And I kind of feel like it gives each individual piece, a unique life, where, it's the whole point of me making it on the wheel is the fact that it's man-made and kind of one of a kind, where if I wanted the same thing over and over, I'd just make a mold and pour slip cast into a mold.
That's beautiful already, the shape.
Thank you. So at this stage, you're focused on, form and the shape, and thinking about how it's going to be used and that kind of stuff, because that's what you can deal with now. And then later I'll think about, glaze and glaze application. So I'll go ahead and give a little bit of an embellishment here. This is similar to the sawtooth. It's just a little bit more of an even mark. Here you go. And so for pieces like this on these bats, I won't cut them free right at this stage. This bat is absorbent, and so what will happen is after this sits overnight, I'll put it back on the wheel, and I'll remove some of the clay at the bottom, because you have to leave a little bit of thickness at the bottom so it'll hold itself up. And then so I'll put it back on the wheel and trim some of that right side up, and then it will release itself from this bat because this is absorbent when it's ready to trim on the bottom. So, but that's pretty much, there's a little vase there.
Yes. And so would you show us around your studio a little bit?
Yeah, let me clean my hands up. let's see if I can flip my camera around. Yeah, here we go. Well, let's do that. I'll just start at the very beginning. I'll start at the door. All right, it's a relatively small space. It was a 2-car garage that I've renovated and turned into my studio. So I've got work tables, pug mill. This is a machine that I use to process clay with. I've got clay storage underneath, a work table and a reclaim area for the clay that gets remixed and reused. Nice big work surface in the middle. Storage shelves, and these I just renovated the walls and things, and added these shelving units where I can put up shelves when I need them and take them down when I don't. I've got work drying over here, a couple urns for a special order, and bowls. So these pieces are drying and getting ready to go in the kiln for the first time. And then, so these are pieces that were made yesterday and then today.
You've been working.
Yeah, I've been working. That's what we have to do. And here's some more inventory that's sitting around. This is all going to a shop down in Ocean Springs. And so here's the wheel where most of the magic happens. So you can see it's kind of messy.
Yeah.
Little mirror for looking at the pot while I'm throwing, and then more storage and music, and slab roller for working on slabs, and an extruder for extruding clay bits. So I use these to make handles and extrude forms and things. So there's all kinds of tools in the studio. I can take you to the kiln and show you. I just fired a kiln load yesterday, and we may be cool enough to open the kiln up. Yeah, it's 200 degrees, so it was fired yesterday. Let me turn some lights on here. So here's an old kiln that doesn't get used very often anymore, but and here's the new kiln. Let's open it up and see how everything looks. So it's still a little warm in there, so I'll have to just kind of take a look. And we got some dessert plates so these dessert plates are new. So it's a bit warm, so I'll have to close it back up so it can get to room temperature.
Fabulous.
All right, so that's a little look into the studio here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So we've seen a lot of your work and everything, and we're really appreciative. If somebody wanted to get in touch with you, David, tell us about your website and how they can contact you.
The website is davidjohnsonceramics.com. And that I try to have inventory there all of the time, where you can shop, day and night. And you can sign up for an email list there and get notifications of new work or notifications about where my next show will be. You can find me there. You can find some inventory usually at the Craftsmen's Guild Gallery at the Craftsman Center. You can come see me at Chimneyville, which happens usually every December. It's usually, I think, the first weekend of December, first weekend. Yeah, so you can Google me, David Johnson Ceramics. You can find my work. You can see lots of examples of older work and new work, and look me up.
Wonderful. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience?
No, I think that's it. Just I hope everybody's staying healthy and happy, and that's it.
This has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me. It's very nice to see you, Diane. I hope to see you in person very soon.